Welcome everyone, Costin here with a guide for Total War Warhammer 3 Immortal Empires, especially for new players, because given the popularity that Total War Warhammer 3 currently enjoys on Steam ever since the release of Immortal Empires, I'm sure there are plenty of new players or returning players who haven't played Total War games in a while. Now for this video I want to go over, you could call them the basics of campaign and battle, the things you need to know when playing the game. This is actually something that Creative Assembly has struggled for years to do properly, I feel. In some eras, they tried to simplify their campaigns, especially with the fact that they moved from a system in Medieval 2, where you would, or Rome 1, where you would have to send your troops to specific settlements, replenish them after a battle. Your troops wouldn't just get automatically replenished as they are right now. And the way settlements work has also been significantly simplified over the years. But that didn't quite work, it didn't quite breach the barrier of entry. In Warhammer 3, they've created a tutorial campaign in The Lost God. And while this is great for learning things like maneuvering your army, building, all that, it isn't really a good experience because the AI that you have in this campaign is really bad and the difficulty is ridiculously easy. So I wouldn't call it a really good tutorial. I've played many strategy games over the years. This is way too hand-holdy, I feel, and it doesn't really match up the experience of a proper campaign. It's a fun campaign, don't get me wrong. It's fun a campaign, it has an interesting story, it has interesting gameplay despite how easy it is. It is an interesting campaign to play and I would recommend it, but it does have issues. I think a harder version of this would have worked, especially if they had a proper or a normal tech tree similar to what Kislev has. The faction you play here is Kislev. Now Kislev
in the name of Magnus
would be a good faction for new players to learn. The problem with Kislev is that their starting positions, all of their starting positions, are incredibly difficult. The most difficult in either Immortal Empires or even in the Realms of Chaos. Kislev is not an easy faction to play. They are a simple faction to play, though they have some nuances that also can increase the challenge, specifically with their gods and with the supporter system. So first off, let's answer a question. Which faction should you play if you're a completely new player? Maybe that's something I should focus on in a dedicated video. But, well, I think the answer comes down to DLC in a significant way. If you are a fresh player and you just bought the game, you don't have the Ogres or the Warriors of Chaos or anything like that, you just have the base game of Warhammer 3, then probably your best choice would be Cafe. Though none of the Warhammer 3 base factions are especially great for new players, Kislev, because although they're easy to play, they're too hard. Cafe a bit too complicated, the various demonic factions too complicated, and the Warriors of Chaos and the Champions of Chaos are DLC. But Cafe is probably your best choice, even though it is a more complicated campaign than some other things. It's more complicated for two reasons. It's more complicated because of a harmony system, yin and yang, that you have to balance out, and that requires careful planning and understanding of the game, and the caravan system, the Great Bastion, and the compass. So there's quite a few mechanics. Though at its core, Cafe does share a lot of mechanics with other factions that are more traditional in the Total War universe. If you own Warhammer 2, the best choice would be the High Elves, and I'd say the High Elves are the best choice overall if you're a new player who's eager to learn the game. If you own Warhammer 1, you could play the Greenskins, though they are going to be lacking some options, but they are a simple enough race to play, easy enough to understand, easy enough to play, and they are a really good choice if you do own Warhammer 1 and now Warhammer 2. But if you do have Warhammer 2, the best campaign as a new player would be as Sirian of the High Elves. Of the default lords, I'd say he is the best choice when you're not counting DLC. Hell, even with counting the DLC, I'd say he is one of the best choices to learn. He's not the best or easiest of factions for new players, but when we're thinking baseline, I would say certainly the High Elves are great for a couple of reasons. Their unit roster is varied. They have good melee units, they have good monsters, they have good ranged units. Even without any DLC. The only thing they're really lacking without the DLC is powerful armor piercing on their ranged units, which the DLC does add. But outside of that, they're fairly balanced. They have easy enough to understand mechanics, easy enough to play. So that's exactly what I am going to do. I'm going to be playing on Legendary because I play all of the campaigns I do on Legendary, and I am just gonna tick some boxes. Some things should be changed over here, like disabled advisor frequency. I don't think the advisor is particularly useful. You may want to tweak the battle time limit. You have 20 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, unlimited. The battle time limit can be useful if you want to fight battles to a draw, if you don't just want to have an unending battle, though some battles will, dependent on the scenario, go on forever until one side wins or the others, but by and large, most battles, if you have a time limit, will oblige a time limit. I'm going to set a 40-minute battle time limit. And when you're playing on Legendary, you don't have manual saves, you don't have quick saves, you can't turn off battle realism. There are some annoyances with that, I admit, but that is exactly what I am going to do. So, let's go with Tyrion. Okay, so welcome to Ulthuan, an island in the middle of the map. There is a mod I have which is called Toggle Fog of War. This will allow me to see the entire map. This is just good for explanation purposes. But Ulthuan is pretty much in the middle, well, not quite the middle on the map, but in the middle of the ocean. It is populated by high elves, though there are certain threats. You start at war with certain dark elves. Dark Elven, a minor Dark Elven faction, which controls many of the regions of your initial province. Each province is basically broken up by regions, can be 2 regions, can be even 1 region, and generally what they'll have is they'll have a main settlement, in this case Lothern, and minor settlements like these ones over here. Now, you do start at war with this Dark Elven faction. They're not a particularly high challenge, though they will recruit quite a few units over here. Now, I do want to look at the Ulthuan situation. Ulthuan is populated by a bunch of high elves, a bunch of high elven factions. Some like you, some don't like you. You can get good relations with many of them, though not all of them. There are 3 legendary lords over here. You have Tyrion, which I picked to play, Elfarion in the east, and to the north, Alariel. There are 3 high elven lords. It's a really good, solid starting position if you play as any of these factions. There are 2 main threats to Ulthuan at the start. The first one is Nakari, which is a demonic Slaaneshi faction, and to the south there is the Galleon Graveyard, which actually starts with an army over here by the coast with their legendary lord by the coast. So you do have 2 major threats, some minor ones like Dark Elves, Greenskins, and more Dark Elves to the north. Though as Tyrion, you're really only concerned with the Dark Elves initially, and everything else is optional. You do have a fairly safe, solid enough position. Beyond that, you have Lustria to the west, Bretonnia to the east. That's after you deal with the situation in Ulthuan, consolidate, expand. Those are some of your choices. Okay, I'm gonna toggle the Fog of War again. Now, regardless of the lord you're gonna pick, you're gonna start with an army, generally a hero of some kind, and more often than not a settlement, though certain factions start with no settlement and have to take one over. In this case, I start with an army of 5, 6, 7 units, as well as Tyrion as the lord. Each army needs to be led by a lord. If you go recruit a lord, you're basically creating a new army. When you do create an army, you are increasing the upkeep of all of your units in all armies faction-wide. This is called supply lines. It is by 4%, so each new army for Tyrion, each new army I recruit will increase the upkeep of all my troops by 4%, and each unit generally has upkeep. There are obviously some exceptions. Some factions don't even have upkeep. They don't deal with the regular economy, but vast majority of factions will have upkeep in some way shape, or form.
Of the Ever
Now,
Queen.
what's the difference between legendary lords and regular lords? Well, the first one is immortality. They can't be killed on the campaign map. They can be killed in individual battles, but they cannot die. They also have unique skill trees that give them special buffs. Generally, this will be here at the top. In the case of Tyrion, he gets this entire skill tree. He has some choices. He can either focus on his own personal combat potential or powerful faction buffs. Personally, I prefer the faction buffs because Tyrion is already a monster as a lord. A regular lord, unless they're special in some way, shape, or form, a regular lord will be able to be killed in battle and they're perma-dead unless they get a certain skill, which they will get at a fairly high level called immortality. Heroes also have this skill. Now for here, it's level 20. When normally killed, this hero will be wounded instead. This applies to lords as well. Now heroes are, so your army, you know, it's your combat force. But what are heroes? Heroes are agents. They can be attached to an army to give them combat potential. In this case, I have a mage. And this mage will, if I look at her skills, this is Harmony Mage, if you will. So to speak. But anyway, this particular mage, a Heaven's Mage, sorry. So she has combat potential, but she also has campaign potential. On the campaign map, she can, if I right-click an army, she can block an army, which will consume movement points. If I target a settlement, I can steal technology, which would increase my research rate. Research gives you a bunch of buffs, unlocks various buildings potentially, various units, depends on the faction. For the High Elves in general, research just gives you buffs to units or to your economy. Though you do need to unlock certain buildings in order to unlock a significant portion of the research down here specifically. Okay. But there are more options available if you unlock them. For instance, she could get an ability against heroes, against enemy heroes, or she can improve an ability to wound them. That will potentially take them out of the fight. But yeah, she has the ability to block army. If you attach her to an army, if I right-click an army, click scouting, what she will do is she will increase the chance that I'll find magical items through scouting. Now, items are weapons, armor, talismans, enchanted items, and ancillaries. Basically, yeah, you could call them as retinues associated to a hero or a lord. To make a lord or hero really powerful, you do need items and you do need ancillaries as well. For the most part, you'll start with nothing. Legendary lords, your faction leaders, will also have special items that they get access to through what are called quest battles. Unique battles that you can fight. They're not especially difficult, or most of them aren't especially difficult on any difficulty, but they do give you these kind of items. In the case of Tyrion, you get armor, a weapon, and a talisman, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. And all of these have individual bonuses, but together they also create a set. So in this case, you would get control. Call a public order to all provinces. Control is a representation of how willing people are to follow you in your regions. If it goes to full, you gain certain buffs. If it goes to 0, or if it decreases, you are going to suffer, like in this case, income penalty, growth, and eventually, recruitment costs to all provinces. And also, if it gets to 0, there will be a rebellion to stamp out. Rebellions can topple provinces if left unchecked, so you do need to worry about that. So the set bonus he has by getting all of these items and using them together, like you need to have them equipped, is fairly substantial. Okay. So with this army, I do have Dark Elf Rebellion, and I am just gonna go after it. But before I do, and this applies to any faction in the game, the first thing you want to do when you start, beyond fighting a battle, building anything, is you want to go to diplomacy. Now, I'm not gonna go over everything in diplomacy right now, but what you need to know is there are certain diplomatic deals you can enact at the very beginning of the campaign. Regardless of how many times you start a campaign, because no one's done anything so far, these deals will always be available. And it is a ripe time to actually make them, because they might not be available later on, or they might be. Depends on the RNG, because the game does have a great deal of randomness. So in this case, I can get a non-aggression pact with Illyrian, which I can then get a trade agreement, and then I can get military access. I'm going to go for all of them, and I'm going to balance the offer. Since I am, since I'm giving more to the AI than I'm receiving, I can balance it and get a bit of gold. But I can get a bunch of these things. What are these things? Just to be brief. Well, trade is pretty self-explanatory. You do start trading with a faction. That will increase both your incomes. But trade can be limited dependent on the resources. So for instance, based on trade goods. And you need to have more and more trade goods in order to have trading partners. Elves are particularly good at this because they can produce trade goods for buildings. Generally, you would need resource-specific buildings. Beyond that, I can get the trade agreement with Avalarn, Alariel, and just increase my trade over there, and that is pretty much it. Just a non-aggression pact and a trade agreement. The non-aggression pact is more or less a promise between two factions that they won't fight each other. It can't be broken, but there is a penalty for doing so. If you break a non-aggression agreement, so I go to Illyrian, and you, let's say I want to cancel it from here. If you break a treaty shortly after signing it for 10 turns, more or less, every faction will consider you treacherous, and your reliability rating will be affected. Your reliability rating is is how much people are going to trust you and how willing they're to deal with you. It does affect diplomacy on a very core level. So if you are reliable, people are more willing to do business with you. If they're unreliable, they are less. Okay, so with that sorted out, then I'll go back to diplomacy. There's a lot more things to talk about. I am going to attack this army. Now, with battles, you can fight it yourself, you can retreat, or you can auto-resolve. If you retreat, you're going to consume movement points. Every lord has campaign movement points. Some can even reset them in the turn, but the vast majority of them will have limited campaign movement points. So if you retreat, you're going to consume movement points. If you auto-resolve it, you will get this particular outcome. In this case, you will get the outcome that's mentioned here. So in this case, it would be a decisive victory with medium casualties. Now, you can auto-resolve quite a lot of battles and win them and without losing units. If you hover over this button of auto-resolve, and you start seeing units flashing red, not in this case, but if you start seeing units here flashing red, that means those units will be destroyed. That's something you want to avoid. Now, here's the thing about auto-resolve. It isn't recommended that you auto-resolve battles unless you have an overwhelming advantage, and even then you may not want to do it. Why? Because generally, in the vast majority of cases, though not all, but in the vast majority of cases, with battles, you'll take far more casualties. And there's also something to be said about that, because you'll win a lesser victory, and you will get lesser post-battle rewards than if you go fight the battle and annihilate the enemy that you have. Now, in this case, what do I have? I have Tyrion as a lord, the Mage, the Heaven's Mage, 3 units of Spearmen, 2 units of hybrid unit Spearmen and Archers, Lavrin Sea Guards with shields. There are some without shields. These guys are with shields. They're good melee units, but they're also good range units. A unit of cavalry and Phoenix. A pretty decent army, though there is something lacking. There is no artillery, so taking walled settlements may end up being an issue. Though you don't necessarily have to deal with that from the very beginning. Against this army, we have an enemy lord, hybrid weapon infantry, right? 2 units of spearmen, enemy spearmen, 1 unit of crossbowmen, and 2 units of dark riders. These are generally considered light cavalry. You have better cavalry, heavier cavalry than they do. You have more units. This is an easy win. A lot of factions will have an army that they will have, or the vast majority of factions, if not all of them, will have some enemy army for them to defeat on the first turn. Okay, so welcome to the battlefield of the first battle. This actually is a bit of an unusual battlefield that it is very crowded by forests, and it's not even terrain. A lot of battlefields in the game, in this game, are actually open field battles that do actually have a lot of room on them, though not all of them. Now, the goal here is to either kill all the enemy units or more likely break their morale. How do you break their morale? Well, you break something called leadership. So here, because I'm playing on the highest difficulty, I have a leadership modifier by -4, so I have less leadership. They have more leadership. They have range buffs, melee buffs, all those kind of things. So they're harder to break and they have more combat potential. But how do you defeat an army? Well, you generally need to break their leadership, their morale, if you will. Or you need to kill them all. Some units will not flee the battlefield. Some units are unbreakable. Some units have terror or fear, or both. This Phoenix, for instance, has fear, which reduces leadership, and terror, which also reduces leadership. And there are ways as well to reduce leadership even further. Some units, some heroes are unbreakable, which means that they can't be broken. They'll fight until the bitter end. That does have its pros and cons. Some units or heroes buff units, like for instance Sirian, and lords in general will have a leadership aura, which increases the leadership of your units in a circle. So Tyrion, for instance, has the Encourage, which provides leadership bonus to nearby allies, though I'm not sure if this is being reflected right now in the stats on the Spearman. Anyway, how do you fight the battle? Well, here's the simplest way. And the way that will work in 99% of battles, with some exceptions, at least field battles. You form multiple lines, or a single line, or several lines. Generally, if you have a balanced army, so to speak, like this, of melee units and ranged units and some cavalry, what you want to do, form a line of your melee units, a second line of your ranged units, your hero in between or on the side, or your lord in between or on the side. Here I'm going to put him a bit on the side so he can go hunting for the enemy lord, and cavalry on the flanks, either concentrated on a single flank or spread out. So here I'm putting the Phoenix on the right, the Silver Helms on the left. Okay. Now at the start of each battle, if you have a caster, you can channel magic to potentially get more active magic from the very start. This can go either way, so be aware that it does have pros and cons to it. And then you can deploy your army. You can deploy like this in the center. You can do a tactic that's called corner camping, like for instance here. These are the white lines are the bounds of the map. So if you have units anchored here between the bounds, the enemy can't flank you. It is great if you're at a severe disadvantage and you want a cheese. It is a cheese. It is considered a cheese, but it does work. But since I do have superiority, I will fight this battle myself. Now, the concern here is this. The AI doesn't have a lot of infantry. They only have 2 spearmen units, one range unit, 1 crossbow unit. But they do have 2 units of cavalry. And those cavalry units are going to be my concern, because getting flanked, if you get flanked, you will suffer a leadership penalty. So you will lose morale. And that is obviously something you want to avoid. So now, over here, in terms of controls, I can't really pause it, but if you hold down the Alt key, you can drag your entire army to a position. Or you can, with certain units, set up a formation. Like if these guys were actual archers, they would automatically move behind them. Now, with that said, I am going to advance. I'm going to keep the Silver Helms. I'm going to wait to engage with my main line, and then I'm going to rush with the Phoenix and the Silver Helms after to try and flank them, or to deal with the enemy cavalry. But I'm actually going to, since they're charging right at me, what I'm going to do is, they're charging with our unit, they've engaged there. You can bait the AI like this. This is the AI wasting its troops, by the way. The reason they're wasting their troops here is because by doing this, they're really wasting the cavalry potential. Now I've sent the Phoenix there to attack the crossbowmen. Ranged units will lose a lot of their combat potential, of course, if they are in a fight. By the way, when one of your flying unit lands, you need to be able to get it back up. You need to get some distance between yourself and the unit you're engaging, and you need to also so you need space, and then you will be able to take off. You can also land it. You have a manual landing button toggle flying there on or off if you so desire. Now I'm using the Lavern Spear Guard, the Lavern units, Sea Guard, sorry. I'm using them to target the Dark Riders, take them out. As you can see, I'm suffering very few casualties, dependent on the formation. Like, this is a fairly easy battle. Though in this battle, I kind of got fortunate that the Dark Riders, instead of flanking around, did decide to attack my front line. You can bait the AI in a lot of cases. They can make those mistakes. Now what I'm doing here with the Phoenix is I'm using a bombardment ability that will do some damage underneath it. There are some units that have that. Now one critical element to talk about when it comes to units is the following. There are or two things to talk about. Ranged units will have skirmish mode. Generally turn this off. The way it works is not particularly good, and more often than not, skirmish mode is going to cost you a lot more than whatever you may gain with it. Okay. The other thing is guard mode. What does guard mode mean? Well, units who are ordering guard mode will hold their position and will not pursue disengaged targets. So when a unit breaks, like these guys, they're broken, these guys will not pursue them. Now, why do you want this on? Well, you want this on because you don't want your ranged units to move out of position when to pursue an enemy. That will actually reduce it. Generally, with ranged units in particular, you want to have them stand their ground, shoot the enemy when the enemy is ranged, not chase them around. It is a trade-off between these two, because quite a few times when an enemy breaks, you may want your infantry to chase. Now, how do you set this behavior? You can go here in settings, and one of the things you can do is you can enable skirmish. You can disable or enable skirmish mode by default, or by default for hybrid units. You can enable running by default. You can enable guard mode by default. When you start a battle instead of having to do that manually. For me, I personally use skirmish mode off by default, guard mode on, and I feel that's something that works for me the best. Though the downside is when enemy units get chased, you may want to disable guard mode. Like when they're about to break, you may want to disable guard mode, so I'm going to do that over here, just so my units just so my units chase them down. Now what's happened here with that purple effect? Well, the Dark Elves have an army ability. When they've taken enough damage with their units, they will gain a major combat buff. But it's only after taking a certain amount of damage. The High Elves also have a similar benefit in that, but it works in a different way. So for the High Elves, it's called, where is it? There we go. Martial prowess. So if the HP of my units is greater than 25% for pretty much all high elven units, if I'm not mistaken, or a lot of high elven units, though not necessarily monsters and the like, but a lot of the infantry, archers, etc., I will gain this buff. And this buff gives me melee defense and melee attack. Melee defense is basically the chance of a unit to be hit. Or reduces the chance of an enemy unit to be hit. Melee attack increases the chance for your unit to hit. Like, melee defense reduces the chance a unit will be hit. Melee attack will increase the chance of that unit to hit other targets. Now, other things to be said about battles is you don't just want to win the battle, you want to inflict as many casualties as possible. This will affect the post-battle rewards, and if you're fighting other legendary lords, you actually want to kill them in the battle for the simple reason that killing them in the battle will prevent them from gaining any experience in that battle. If you can prevent legendary lords from leveling up, that will give you a significant campaign advantage. Okay, so I won the battle. I won it with minimal casualties, less than 100 men lost in total, and I used very simple tactics. Just spearman line formation followed by the ranged units, cavalry on the side. One thing to be said about battles is to break the enemy, you really want to rely on flanking because that will deliver a morale shock. Other things that deliver morale shocks are doing a lot of damage in a very short period of time. So like things like spells or artillery. And finally, one thing that will deliver a significant morale shock is if their lord or hero is killed. Or both. If both are killed, that's great. And casualties, etc., lords being killed will affect the balance of power. Like the balance of power between the armies, that's what it represents. If you get the significant upside on the balance of power, you will win. The enemy army will break completely. There's routing. There's routing units who will recover and return to the battle, and then there's units that are shattered who will not. I think it's a number of times that units can rout before they're shattered, before they're completely broken, and will not return, will just flee the battlefield. Now, after each battle, dependent on how well you've done, you'll gain experience. You'll also gain money, right? Dependent on how many units you've killed, depending on the nature of the victory, how many units you've lost, all that kind of stuff, right? In this case, I captured also 60 enemy. So, killing a lot of enemies will result in them being captured, and you will have some choices. The free choices I have here are execute the captives. This is a choice a lot of factions will have something similar. In this case, for the High Elves, I gain 100 experience for my units for one turn. Individual units have experience. They can go from bronze to gold to bronze to silver to gold. Gain a lot of combat power. I can force labor, which would replenish my army, replenish some of the losses I've taken, or I can ransom them for a bit of money and some special resource. A lot of factions will have something similar to this. In this case, I would get 300 money, not a lot, not really worth it for that purpose, but I would also get 1 influence per turn. That is the special faction resource. Every faction has something of the like per turn. So 1 per turn, 5 in total. In this case, I am going to go for ransoming because that will give me that influence benefit, which I can use. What do you do with influence as a High Elves, just to explain it? Well, there are 3 things you can do. You can use intrigue at court, which you can use to manipulate your relations with other factions, either making them like you or disliking you. Or you can affect the relationship between different factions. Depends on the cost depends on the factions, the relationships between them, etc. So, for instance, the Cult of Excess doesn't like me, so it would take 15 to affect them in a positive way, 11 in a negative way. But Elariel does like me, so it will only take 5. The other thing they can do is perform rites. Now, these rites will require you to do certain challenges, like controlling free settlements, for Aisha, for Hoef, getting the archive building, for Sirian, rank 5 on my faction leader, and Val after getting free technologies. Okay.
Servant of the king.
Now, I've ranked up with Tyrion, though not with my hero. And so that gives me a skill point. What do you want to do with your skill points? There's a lot of things in this tree, but it basically boils down to this. You have your special trees over here at the top. Then you have, like in this case for Tyrion, since he's a High Elf Lord, he can dedicate himself to a god. But if you have a magic user, generally you'll have the magic tree. Like if you have a magic legendary lord, you might have a magic tree there, or you'll have your combat tree. Tyrion doesn't have magic, so he only has the combat tree, which would improve his own personal combat potential. Then he has his army tree, which improves his army's combat potential, and one skill gives you experience per turn, more leadership, then you gain various benefits, melee units, ranged units, monsters, artillery, what have you. Then you have your campaign potential, which, for instance, more range for your army, increase to trade goods, increase to public order, recruitment costs, ambush, reducing the chance that your army will be ambushed, higher rank for units that you recruit, etc., etc. Those are your decisions. Now, what are the best decisions to make? Well, the first one you should almost always make, unless it's a very specific lord-specific situation, would be to increase your campaign movement range. Some heroes won't some lords won't necessarily have it like this. You might have to get a different ability, but increasing your campaign movement range is probably one of the more important things you can do. Beyond that, if you're playing a faction that can get a lot of ranged units, you want to focus on those ranged units. Ranged units, especially early on, are going to be able to win you battles with far fewer casualties. The Elves are a ranged unit faction. They can produce other units as well, but they're not. But the ranged meta is certainly very well and alive in a lot of strategy games, because you can win battles without suffering any casualties or very few casualties. Whereas if you focus on melee, you are going to suffer casualties. And the Elves in particular are the kind of faction that does rely on ranged units more than it relies on melee units, though it can make some melee armies work pretty well. This, by the way, ties in research as well. Now, as the Elves, you do have limited options. You can only focus initially on military advancements, though for other factions, you may focus on campaign advancements. So, like if I had cultural advancements from the start, maybe that would be worth it, because I could get Waystone Network, which increase campaign movement range. But campaign movement range is very useful, followed up in terms of priority list. I would say focusing on being able to move around the campaign far faster is extremely useful, followed up by range combat potential. Buffing your lord's personal combat skill is important, but I feel it's less important at the start, though later on that changes with items, with higher skills, etc. But buffing at the start your army combat potential and your ability to move across the map is going to be more important from my perspective. Now, with this battle won, I'm going to go take the Tower of Lycia, and I'll go into the settlement situation after I do so. Now, I can auto-resolve this, but as you can see, if I did that, I would lose those 4 units. And I don't want to lose those 4 units, because I can go through this and win it with ease without doing so. This is one of the things to be said about the auto-resolve. Especially right now, I feel it just too heavily favors the defender in a settlement, at least if the defender is the AI. If you're the player, you're always at a disadvantage with auto-resolve, because at least on the higher difficulties, because the way the auto-resolve works is it will be biased against you if you're playing on a higher difficulty. On easy, it would be biased in your favor, so you can win battles in auto-resolve that would be very difficult to win otherwise. But if you're playing on very hard battle difficulty, and the auto-resolve is based on your battle difficulty, not your campaign difficulty, so it's based on this. So if you're playing on very hard, a lot of auto-resolve outcomes will be extremely negative. I could win this, but I lose 4 units, and I don't want to lose them. And besides, there's only 4 melee units and 1 ranged unit there, and it will be pretty easy to deal with all of them. Alright, so welcome to a minor settlement battle. Here's what you need to know about siege battles in general. The only difference between this and the walled cities is the walls. Otherwise, they'll work in very similar ways. Each settlement has these kind of control points. Each control point has some towers, or in this case, 3 towers, and some barricades associated with it. There are some cases where they may only have barricades, some cases where they may only have towers, but by and large, you're going to have control points associated with towers or barricades. Some exclusive cases, like this one, is only tied to one particular tower. So what does this mean? Well, it means as long as the AI controls this, or the defender controls these points, they're going to be able to get either towers or barricades there. If the defender loses these points, then all the towers and barricades that they've built using defensive supplies will be lost. Oh, I like the eagles there flying overhead. Really nice touch over there. But the goal in these minor settlement battles, or in siege battles in general, is not necessarily to take the control points. So in the proper siege battles, if you can take certain control points, or if you're defend them, you can win the battle for that. But by and large, like in every battle, in every settlement battle, if the defender loses all their control points, or in the major ones, if they lose certain specific ones, they'll lose the siege. So in this kind of minor settlement battle, if the defender can hold a single control point, as long as they do that, and the enemy either withdraws or the timer runs out if you have it enabled, the defender will win. Actually, if the timer runs out, it will be a draw. The siege will continue, but yeah. But the defender will win if the AI if the enemy units, if the attacker loses all their units, or the units that the attacker has are driven out. Now, how do you fight these battles? Let's just go into that. Well, here's what I've learned. Generally speaking, in the vast majority of cases, it is best to bunch up your units in these minor settlement battles at a single specific point, especially if you have ranged units. But even with melee armies, just bunch them up, steamroll, blop them up, steamroll through it. The AI, what the AI does is generally spread their forces around. So even if they do have range superiority over you, they're not necessarily going to bring it all to bear. Now, are there downsides to that? Of course, the enemy towers that they're going to build are going to shoot you, but the damage they're going to do, in my experience, isn't necessarily very high, and you gain a lot by concentrating your power here. The only times you don't want to concentrate your power, in this case, I'm actually going to have to send the Phoenix over there too, and Tyrion into the fray there, because if I start getting a shot there, like, I'm only sending units that I can afford to get damaged. Actually, I'm just going to send Tyrion because he can get damaged. Tyrion is an incredibly potent melee combatant, and so you can take it. Since the AI only has 1 unit of range, that's exactly what I want to take out. If I deal with these guys, the AI combat potential is significantly reduced. Because here's what the AI will do. They will very, very rarely move out of their settlement to attack you. Like, there are lines, there are invisible lines. Now, with the Dark Shards, the crossbowmen taken out, I can move my Phoenix to take down the towers that are currently active. I'll keep Tyrion in front in case their melee units decide to engage me. And the great thing about using heroes like this is generally if there is a spearman, if I was to move them there and I would get engaged in melee, they wouldn't be able to engage properly. But with Tyrion, well, let's look at this. I send Tyrion over here. He engages. He charges right in. And my Lorem Sea Guard, because he's a single entity and he's relatively small, my Lorem Sea Guard will be able to still shoot. And be quite effective. So 1 tower taken down, another one. I'm just going to speed this battle over here because it's going to be fairly easy. And you can see that I'm able to win this to this significant damage just using my ranged units, taking very little damage in return, only from the towers. And I think these crossbows are probably shooting at me, actually. Now, of course, this will not last forever. The enemy towers are shooting at me. And they're gonna also rebuild towers that they've lost. Now what I'm using here is the spell Harmonic Convergence, so Tyrion hits, has a higher chance to hit basically, and there's a lower chance that he will be hit. Just buffing him up, that's what that mage does. Okay. Now what's happened there is they took so many casualties that the balance of power swung in my way, so their morale completely collapsed. That's what will happen when you win the balance of power game. Alright, when you take settlements, you will be given certain options. You can occupy a settlement and I can occupy it. This will just take it as is. Though, the level of the settlement itself will be reduced by 1, even with a simple occupation. I can loot and occupy it. This will take the settlement 1 level less, but also damage the buildings inside of it. And it will inflict a severe public order penalty. Like if you just occupy it, it's -10, it's a conquest penalty on control. If I loot and occupy it, it's -30. But you do gain some gold, and you do also gain some unit replenishment. I don't really need that. I can raise it to the ground. I don't want that because I want this province. It would be especially useful. Or you can go with sacking it and then occupying it, or just sacking it. Sacking will give you a significant amount of gold. Not strictly necessary in my case, I feel. But will reduce the sacking action itself will reduce the level of the settlement by 1 in its just itself. So if you sack and occupy it, you're reducing the level of the settlement by 2. Now this doesn't really matter here because the level isn't high enough, but it can matter especially towards the middle late game. So just be aware of that. There are downsides. However, one thing to be said is you can really rely on sacking settlements to give you a ton of money and then slowly rebuild those settlements back to their original levels. In this case, I'm just going to occupy it. I start with a decent amount of money, so I'm not really too concerned by it. And you do retain some of the structures, or they get converted to you. In this case, I got the Elven Craftsman, and I can also get the settlement to level 2. Now let's talk about settlements over here. How do they work? Well, each province, settlements are in provinces. Each province has a certain number of regions, anywhere between 1 to 4. Multiple regions make a province, or even in some cases with certain key provinces, they may only have one settlement. As an example, these gates, the High Elves have these gates: the Phoenix Gate, the Unicorn Gate, the Griffin Gate, the Eagle Gate. These gates are special settlements. Like they're military fortresses. They don't generate income. They don't have public order. They're special kind of settlements. But they are, each gate is a province in itself, effectively. Now each province may have multiple regions, may only have one region, but each province, when you control it in its entirety, will also give you commandments. So I'll cover that in just a bit once I do take all of this. Now, each province, or the regions that you control in a province, will have a couple of things for you to worry about. Income, you can collect it or not collect it. Income affects public order controlled by 4. So if you're collecting taxes, you're suffering a -4 public order penalty. Most of the time, you will want to collect taxes, but if you want to avoid a rebellion, in some cases, you can disable this. There's also a difficulty modifier, and I admit I'm not fond of that at all. Difficulty modifier on Legendary of -8. This depends on the difficulty. If you're playing on easy, you might get a bonus to this. Like you might get the public order bonus if you're playing on that. Anyway, so what do settlements have? They have their main settlement building, and then they have the minor buildings, and then there's certain special buildings as well, landmarks they're called. In the case of Lothern in Athene, I have 2 landmarks. Lothern is a port, so a port settlement will always have a port building. This province has a port as well. This will always occupy a slot. Ports will generate income, generally useful to have. Now, the ports of Ephane, the ports of Lothern are a special kind of building, so they're more beneficial. They'll generate more income, give me growth, and provide a garrison. So taking Lothern, it can be fairly difficult because they will be well defended. Like, they'll get an extra garrison by default, and since this is quite a formidable city to begin with, if you get it all the way to level 5, the default garrison will be fairly substantial to begin with. And then you have your regular building slots, anywhere from level 1 to 5. Some may start at level 3, for instance, these kind of buildings would only start at level 3 to 5, some only go to 3, like the basic militia camp to Warhol. And there are some buildings that you can only really build or take advantage of in a major settlement. So for instance here, major settlements go up to 5, to level 5. Minor settlements only go up to level 3. Minor settlements have 4 slots. Major settlements may have 8, some fewer, but 8 slots, or in this case 10. Lothern is a special settlement, so it has more slots. But regular settlement would generally have 8, as you can see here with the White Tower of Hoeth. And you do have various choices of structures. You can get military buildings, advanced military buildings, defense buildings. Like you want to have a stronger garrison, or you want to have better control of a region and deal with the nasty Skaven and plagues. Yeah, you can get some of these buildings. The garrison, I would say, is only particularly useful if you feel like a region is constantly going to be attacked. This can be important for certain campaigns, though it's not necessarily going to be an issue for you, unless you certainly face a major invasion of your lands and you just want to have a way of making things a lot harder to deal with. Most of the time, you will want to early on get some basic military buildings. Military buildings in the case of the Elves focused on archers and infantry, and also buildings focused on the economy or growth. What is growth? Well, growth is a stat. Like, growth is a stat that fills a circle that gives you surplus. So for instance, each point of surplus goes towards upgrading your main settlement buildings, as they're called. Like at level 2 over here, from level 1 to level 2, it would only take 1 surplus point. If I wanted to get level 5 here, just from level 4 to 5, it would take 5 surplus points. The amount of growth that you need to fill a surplus point increases over time. So here I already have 1 surplus point, so I need 375. Now I have a default right here of 38 over here, 38 per turn. Where am I getting that 38 from? Well, I'm getting 20 from Lothern itself, which is at a level of Elven Village. I'm getting 10 from the port, and I'm getting 8 from the hamlet over here. The more growth you have, the easier it is to grow, the easier it is to upgrade. Though upgrading can also be extremely expensive, so growth isn't everything. It is important. Some factions do require a lot of growth. Dwarfs, for instance, do need growth. There are buildings that increase growth. There are some buildings that may decrease growth. But yeah, in your case, you have, for instance, the homestead, which would increase growth. But I don't really need growth that much as the High Elves, because your buildings already have a solid enough growth. There's also the ports here that are going to add some growth, so I don't need to worry about that. What do I need to worry about then as an elf playing as Sirian? Well, for starters, I'm going to upgrade, or actually I'm not going to upgrade it because I'm not particularly interested right now in the Lothern Sea Guard. So I'm going to keep this as it is. Dependent on the units that you may use, you may upgrade or not. In the case of the High Elves as a faction, the archers will light armor, and the basic spearmen or even the basic archers that can recruit it from any settlement will provide a really good amount of combat power. But I'll get into recruitment in just a second. So what am I going to do over here? Well, there are 2 things I'm going to do at this very moment. Or actually 3 things. First off, I'm going to use that surplus point to upgrade the minor settlement first. You don't want to try. You don't want to leave your minor settlements unupgraded and then just upgrade the main settlement in the main city, because that's actually going to be slower. Because the minor settlements, the higher level they are, the more growth they produce. Like this would go from 8 to 15, so it's easier to upgrade, like get the minor settlements to 3, far easier, far faster, and then upgrade the main settlement. Though there is a balance in that. Now, over here, I have 3 buildings that are available that I may want. I can get an Elven Garden building that would give me a noble as a hero. Might be useful, 2 turns. Let's go with that. And beyond that, I am going to get the Elven Craftsman. I could get the Plaza. That would increase my control. In fact, I may actually just go with the Plaza, because right now my economy is in a pretty decent state. And I could certainly use that extra control. So yeah, let's just go with the Plaza. Though the problem with that is I may not have the money for other things that I may want. But now elves, depending on the faction you're playing, certain abilities may have certain effects if certain conditions are met. With the elves is, if you have 100 control in your region, which you can certainly achieve with this building chain, if you have 100 control in a region or in a province, you will gain extra income for, or certain effects, like extra income for the Elven Craftsman, extra income for the Plaza. So right now, I'm just going to focus on control. Gonna need it because I do have a lot of settlements. Now, Tyrion leveled up again. I'm going to get Inspiring Presence, get that 75 experience per turn for units, quite a good amount. And for the Mage, I'm just going to get this first skill in Harmonic Vengeance. Already has it, it just buffs it. This is cool, and you can overcast it. Overcasted means you're spending more magic on it, but it can be a more powerful version of the spell. Also, it can miscast. As for units that I'm going to recruit, I don't really have a lot of money right now, and I don't really have any way of getting it, so at the moment I am just going to recruit 2 units of Elven Archers. Regular Elven Archers with light armor. What's the difference? It's just an armor difference, a pretty substantial 25 armor difference. You could just use regular Archers, they're pretty much the same, but I do prefer having that higher armor. Though there have been people playing this game on Legendary while just relying on their basic archer units. And that's the first turn. Gonna end the turn. And one of the things to be said about the end turn button is you can have fast forward or you cannot have fast forward. If you don't have fast forward enabled, every action that gets taken, I'm just gonna disable this for a second. Every action in a region that you can see or a province you can see that the AI generally does will, well, you'll see it being played out, I believe. Generally, I play with fast forward and then take note of what happens after. Like for instance here, you can see this rogue navy moving to sea. Okay. We also have the good old Count with his undead that he's about to make landfall and try and take Calador. I may want to stop him. Okay, over here I am going to move Tyrion to Lawfern because I do still want to recruit some units.
Awaiting orders.
More Elven units. And that leaves me without money. The research is complete. The research that I want to get at the moment of the options that I have here, I want to increase the reload time reduction. So this means my range units are going to fire faster. Though I'm going to get archery prowess. Generally I would have gone with cartridge ammunition, but I think I'm going to get spear wall most likely, and then militia training. Okay. Since the turn has passed, there may be more diplomatic options, since things have changed. In this case, Turnok will agree towards a trade agreement, but I may not want to go for that. The reason I may not want to go for that in this case is because Illyrian because I have good relations with Hilarion.
I will receive your
Or
petition.
relatively good relations, but it is growing. If I make a trade deal with Turnok,
may approach and
then
make
my
your
relations with
request.
Hilarion will suffer, and I may also want to end up declaring war on Turnok myself to seize their territory. So think ahead of when I'm making decisions,
called?
like where do you want to expand, what do you want to take, what wars do you want to
I
fight.
bid you welcome.
One thing I am going to do,
What do you
however,
wish
is
to
make a military
discuss?
alliance with Ilariel. You don't want that
Serving the
deal,
gods.
and
As
get
will
some gold
Mistress
as
of
well.
the
Fear.
Lady of
Those
Ulthuan.
those are the only options available here at the moment.
Protector of the Everqueen. Ready to serve.
Now you also have global recruitment, where you basically spend twice the amount of money or close to it for the units, but you recruit them. It's global recruitment, so you can recruit units globally. Now all factions
Tyrion,
have it
heir of
quite like
Valerian.
that, or the global recruitment works different. I'm not going to use it in this case because
Servant of the king.
I don't want to spend 2 turns here. Basically, like I want to keep moving. If there is a
Champion of the
bit of
Everqueen.
advice that I want to give people here when it comes to playing the game, keep
I'm waiting.
moving. Never
Speak.
stop. Always have a plan in action.
Tyrant.
Never spend more than 2 turns in a province
Shield
if you
against
can
the
avoid it. If
darkness.
you need to recruit units with global recruitment or units that take longer turns,
Tyrion,
recruit
heir
a
of
lord.
Valerian.
Recruit a lord and use that instead. Now I can't really recruit good lords over here because I don't have the influence. Like the high elves use influence to recruit good lords. So for instance, if I were to recruit a prince, I can only recruit these guys with bad stats as opposed to the guys that would have really good stats, like organized, for instance, or the ones that cost 60 influence that are that may be far more useful. So for instance, Anna over here would be incredible because she would have a major range buff. She would have campaign movement range. So I'm not particularly fond of the princesses because they're not really good
It
lords.
shall be done.
Since they're ranged lords, and ranged lords I think tend to do worse than melee or caster lords. That is a discussion to be had. So anyway, end this turn as well. I'm just gonna fast forward. She's gonna take that settlement. Pretty much every lord starts in a region where they have an enemy that's designed for them to defeat. She starts with the cult over here with the Dark Elves, the Sword of Cain as they are being called, and she's gonna build up an army to defeat them. Now what the AI is going to do, like, you can just spend some campaign time, especially with this Fog of War mod, just see what actions the AI generally tends to take, and you can use that to her advantage. So over here, the Dark Elves have moved their entire army that started here at the Shrine of Sirian. They've moved it to the port. That means there is going to be a heavy battle on our hands because we also have the garrison. The garrison has 6 units. We can see that it's 4 melee units, 2 ranged units, and he's likely going to have some more ranged units as well. That is not an especially favorable fight, but it will take more than those kind of odds to defeat me. I'd win without resolve, to give you an idea. And it actually is great to pick this fight here because these units in particular would be a nuisance on an open field battle, but they are a good choice to face in a siege battle or a minor settlement battle as this is, because that nullifies a lot of their power. The AI with these kind of units would run in circles around you on the battlefield. Like if we were fighting on an open battlefield, I'd be more concerned than fighting in a minor settlement. The AI can't even really concentrate their power effectively. Can't because of the layout of the settlements, and can't because they don't use their units properly. But even if they did concentrate their power, the range power, even if they threw everything against me, they still wouldn't be able to win. So let's go for it. Okay, so here we are. Same deal as before. Mass all my units in the same location and use that mass of ranged units in particular to take them out. To take the enemy defenders out one by one, however it is. I also send Tyrion ahead to soak some of the damage potentially.
With me.
Now, there is thought put in by the developers to nullify perhaps the range combat power that you may have at your disposal with some of these labs. So for instance here the streets are pretty narrow, so fitting 4 units over here is a bit of a stretch, I admit. Now Tyrion did gain an item that reduces the melee attack and melee defense.
The Reaper! Seal! Forward! Acknowledge!
Holding down Alt to advance, and I am also advancing with these guys. I'm gonna try and advance with all my units here closer, while using these guys to do some damage. Now the AI isn't completely moronic in respect to this. They won't just like, oh yeah, we're just gonna get bombed to death, we're just gonna take it. They will try and protect their units to some degree. Your ranged units are most effective when they are firing in a direct line. So if they're firing overhead buildings or that kind of stuff, they are going to generally be less effective. I'm gonna move the mage closer, and I'm just going to wait for those dread spears to get closer to the fight. They have shields, so they will take some less melee damage. Okay.
It will be done.
Now, one thing you can do if you are using flying units or fast-moving units on foot. Tyrion doesn't have his horse yet. He will get a horse. He will get one automatically once he gets to a certain level.
Onward.
All right, you can see that those harpies are gonna speed it up. No reason to dawdle, really. Now the phoenix can be revived if it dies, so I'm not too concerned if it ends up being killed. But keep advancing. It also has fear and terror, so it can do a lot of, like you can see, morale shock there is pretty high. Now the AI is being very tricky here. I gotta give them that. Okay, harpies are dead. We're driven out. Dark Riders there are driven out. Alright, gonna get that one out. Dread Spears are good against units like Phoenixes, though if I were to pick a winner in this particular battle, I'd probably go with the Phoenix. I'm just gonna keep Tyrion there. Let him do some damage. Okay, they're running out of ammunition. And maybe time to bring in the spearmen.
Lorem Seagard. Lorem Seagard. Archers. Orders received.
Seeking the foe.
We will obey.
March!
Alright, so it's gonna go after those dark shards. I'm just gonna use the melee hex. Melee hex. Yeah, I just struggle for him.
As you say.
Weapons ready!
Still a bit of ammunition there left. But only a bit.
A Sirian guides us!
Understood.
Your ranged units will be more effective if you fire with them closer to the enemy.
Heir of Anarian. Orders understood.
Those archers there.
For duty. Asur, advance.
Oh, that was unexpected a bit.
Forward.
But I did give an order for them to engage.
Attack!
Seal. Move.
I'm just gonna disable the guard mode on it.
archers! For order!
It might only be a volley, but it will be effective.
Understood.
Acknowledged! Spearman! Loyal!
I'm gonna
Swiftly!
try
I
and
go
prevent my
then.
Lavern Sea Guard
Efua, bend to my will.
from taking too much damage over there.
Sword of the Assur!
Alright, there's more than one volley there.
Ulfwan Mage. Duty
I'm
calls.
also gonna send the mage there. The bird may have taken a decent amount of damage. But here's the beauty, I don't necessarily even need to win this battle over here. If I can just fight them to a draw,
Assur
which
Mage.
may be the smarter
Sunfight
decision.
lusts for battle!
If I fight them to a draw, then the settlement will remain under siege and I will eventually win all the same.
Understood! Understood!
Okay, so those guys are completely broken.
Onwards
Let's
to
move
victory.
Victorian.
Without fail!
Gonna move these guys over here.
Advance!
And just gonna speed it up again. Alright, those guys are completely broken. Oh, they weren't completely broken. Okay. Alright, I took that point. Just gotta be careful with that bird. It took a lot of damage, and I don't particularly want to attempt resurrection right now. Oh, she's fled. Interesting. Yeah, the loss of so much ammo was an unfortunate situation. Oh, they actually shot me to pieces there. Alright, gonna have to send in the cavalry. They do have some barricades there, those are gonna be annoying. And they are inflicting a terrible toll over there. Gonna disable his guard mode. Tyrion is a better fighter than those guys, than he is. Just sending the bird though as a safety measure, if you will. I think if I kill the Lord, the army losses will finally pile in. Yeah, there we go. Was a bit closer than it should have been, but yeah, the army losses finally took their toll. Just gonna kill him for extra experience, assuming it does give me. I should have gotten closer to them. The mistakes I made here is that I should have gotten closer to them and I didn't pay attention to her taking as much damage as she did. But victory.
Take it all! Servant of the king. To victory! Occupy this place!
Now in this case I've decided to sack it simply because I need the extra money to get more
Shield
units.
of Alaric.
There's a hard fight awaiting me and I do just need those extraneous from global recruitment, so that's exactly what I'm going to take advantage of.
Ready for orders.
Since it takes 2 turns for global recruitment, I'm also going to recruit for 2 turns. The shrine itself is guarded by a garrison, so it has a strong army. For Tyrion over here, I'm going to increase the range prowess of my units. So this will provide an extra garrison for that settlement. I'm going to repair these buildings. Actually, how much would it cost? No. No. Just gonna repair the main settlement building and construct a level 2.
No glory.
Over there.
Only
now, because I've
sons.
taken that settlement, I have some options with
best.
factions that...
Defender
Or I
of the
might have met
Everqueen,
certain
I
factions
speak
that
for the
were not
Phoenix
necessarily
King,
available. So
and
for
I bid
instance,
you
I met
welcome.
Crix. I can get
As
the
you
trade
said,
agreement with them, even if they
Warden
aren't
of
long for
Tor
this
Ivres.
world as a
I
faction.
bid you welcome to the court of the
Elves,
Phoenix
high
King.
elves get line of sight on their trading partners.
wise
Generally, you would
course.
gaining it with the
Prince
military or defensive
Eltharion.
alliance. So I've gotten trade agreements with Kofik and with Crix, though I could have gotten one with Ivres. Typically, you do want to get trade agreements with legendary lords because they're the ones that are usually going to survive. Now, she's a level up. I'm going to get the Thunderbolt ability, really powerful striking ability over there. I did lose 1 archer unit. That is unfortunate. And I've also unlocked an invocation, though I don't have the money right now to actually use it.
Defender of
Buildings that are damaged will just be less, will generate less, in this case less growth, less income, not really an issue, and they will have slowly rebuilt, or the cost to rebuild them will go down. Not the list apparently over there is like, nah, I'm not gonna go for that. Alright, so, I don't quite have enough influence over here for the kind of lord, the kind of noble that I want. But I should be able to
Duty.
soon enough.
Lord of Fear.
Did take quite a few damage, my strength ranking went down. One critical element is your strength rank. This determines, like, if you're very strong against a friendly faction, they might be
My
more
life
willing to deal with you.
For Tor
If you're very
Ivres.
strong against an AI faction that's hostile, they might be less willing to screw with you. However, if you are exceptionally strong, they will perceive you as a gigantic threat and
No
proceed
glory.
to declare war on
Only
you, even if they
sons.
believe they have no chance of winning, just because they're terrified of you. So it is a double-edged sword regardless of how you view it. There's pros, cons, but your strength ranking depends on the amount of provinces you have, the amount of lords you have, heroes, armies in particular. Have multiple stacks of troops. We call each army a stack. Have multiple stacks of troops. You'll be perceived as a greater threat. Paint the world in your color. You'll be perceived as a threat. Alright, let's end this turn. One thing to be said about unit recruitment and benefits from structures, unless it says region only, they affect the entire province. So for instance, Tyrion is able to recruit in that port, even though the structures are in Lothern, because it is in the same province. If I move outside the province, I won't be able to recruit. Worth knowing. Alright, and same goes with hero recruitment, lord recruitment. Though in this case, I don't want to spend the money on a lord that's just not gonna be particularly good.
Ever vigilant.
That's the downside of the elves. Got another level. You do gain some experience per intern, some passive experience gains. For her, there are some choices. I think I'm gonna get Wind Blast over there. And I could get this to level 2, but I'm also quite as likely to want to destroy that soon enough. Now, since I have the money, I am going to evoke Isha. These invocations last for 10 turns. Actually, not the Isha, sorry, a Sirian. Because that's going to give me 2 influence per turn, 15% construction cost, and 4 control. Let's go with that. You want to get the control up. To symbolize things.
Awaiting orders. I live to serve my queen.
Now the AI will, unlike you, generally get heroes for free. So the AI here has 2 heroes for free because apparently they can recruit heroes even in provinces where they don't have the buildings for it, and or maybe they just started with them. And even if they don't necessarily have the capacity. They will also start recruiting units. The garrison here is already 11 units because of the structure they have. So this one is going to be a bit of a battle. Though not necessarily an exceptionally harsh one. I've already dealt with the exceptionally harsh one. The exceptionally harsh one was at the port over there. The Shrine of Sirian is an important place for the elves, and it is the last piece of the puzzle in terms of controlling this entire province. Enemy heroes, by the way, in enemy provinces like there will produce negative effects. So for instance, that hero there just being in my province is reducing my growth in province.
Shield against the darkness.
Going to get another plaza. Don't have enough money for anything. Well, I have enough money for soldiers, but I don't necessarily want to go there. Every turn, go check your diplomatic relations. I can get a defensive alliance with Illyria and a bit of money for that.
Burn the coastlines.
Noctilus apparently is playing the passive game.
Of the Ever Queen.
A bit weird, because he can take Calidor. Now, over here, if I fight this battle on my own, I lose 4 units. But I do win it. However, you may want to scout the battlefield. It isn't a walled settlement, so it's still a settlement battle. Okay. The basic army here isn't particularly powerful, though they do have a number of range units due to the garrison. But not really too big of an issue. I will hopefully snipe their lord. Yep, going after their lord, reducing their morale, affecting that balance of power. Okay, so we got a ramp. Always scout your battlefield. Ramp, ramp, ramp. Not necessarily the most ideal scenario. I think I'll deploy here.
Orders received.
You could attack multiple points, but not strictly recommended. Because unless you deploy your units evenly.
Lorem Seaguard. It shall be done.
Well, as expected.
Onward.
My guys are in range. Let's move forward. And let's engage the enemy. Now, Lava and Seaguard aren't as good at ranged as the regular archers are. That is their downside. They're a good hybrid. They can fight decently well in melee. They can take a good amount of damage because they have shields, though. These guys are the highest tier. Like there's a version of the Lavern Seaguard that don't have shields. Now I'm gonna position those archers here to shoot at more units. And in point of fact, I'm actually gonna just stop shooting with them altogether. Let's see the AI reposition a bit. Just gonna shoot manually, actually. Yeah, so you can disable fire at will. Gotta admit, climbing up that ramp is not my favorite action. Gonna send the eagle. And you can see that I don't really have a good line of sight there to deal with those dark shards. Also, the barricades, I find dealing with them to be something of a problem. I think if I position there, I'm gonna get her here so she can use a spell in range. Alright, gonna pull it out. Yeah, that is an issue. Because I can't really shoot at them from any angle. Though I may, yeah. So they're gonna shoot my Lavern Seaguard to pieces. I'm just gonna call another Thunderbolt.
Scython, hear me!
Archers, to the fray! It shall be done. Servant of light, to battle!
I don't know what they're doing there. Yeah, I can be with the pathfinding can be a bit weird in this game.
Battle awaits. Acknowledged.
Winds of magic rise!
Right, a certain number of units have been eliminated there.
Heir of Anarian. Sunfang lusts for battle. Death to all! Loven Seaguard.
Alright, gonna get the Sea Guards out of there.
The terrain is against us. Defender of Ulfwan. With
There are
me,
more Dark Shards there.
it will be done. Ancestors.
Look at Tyrion not giving a crap. This, by the way, is one of the reasons he's one of the strongest legendary lords in the game, because he gives no shits about enemy damage. What the?
Weapons ready. We will obey.
Alright, I'm gonna fall back with them.
Archers, as you say.
Might lose them even.
Lacoy, heir of Anarian.
There's two barricades there. There's barricades all around. You can shoot the barricades. Don't try and fight them in
For duty.
melee,
Without fail.
as it will not go very well.
We will obey. Archers,
Gonna get these archers
quickly
here as
now.
well.
Asa attack.
Lacoy, heir of Anarian.
Dark Shards eliminated. More Dark Shards, just gonna reposition here. And just gonna take the point here with Tyrion. They still do have their heroes over there. There's a lot of... Yep. Didn't even fight the enemy heroes. Now the tactics that I'm using, right? Going in with range units, moving up the ramps or the choke points, sniping everything in my path, all that. That is a ranged... that is a tactical
Search
ranged
this place.
faction. I'm going to sack it. finally,
Attack.
Sirian gets his horse out of it.
Occupy
Sack
this
it,
place.
occupy it. Keep that. Repair that. Dismantle the one that I started with. Upgrade this one. The reason I'm upgrading this one is to get more slots here. Upgrade the trinkets. Dismantle this building, and I'll get extra.
Champion of the Ever
And there we go. That's the first province. The rebel faction has been eliminated. Now you have commandments. These can range from control, public order, control or public order, income, recruitment, and so on and so forth. I am going to go with tribute to the Phoenix King. I don't need the growth. I simply don't need the growth right now. I could use the extra income. Now this building is not really worth repairing. I'll let it repair on its own. Okay, so that was the initial challenge. Regardless of which faction you're going to play, you're always going to have an initial challenge that you're going to have to deal with. I can level Tyrion up. Interesting choices over here. He doesn't need control. He'll get. He has other ways of getting it, honestly. And your legendary lord is generally going to be on the move. What other options? What other options? Well, when you get to 7, you may actually want to not spend the points on anything. Over here, I'm just going to get a Rolling Skies. Like, one of the things I've done with multiple lords is like get this range skill, get movement range, all that, and then just stop until level 12, because that's when their special skill tree generally unlocks. And if you start saving from 7, you can potentially unlock all of it at once. So it's like if I were to just get 12 generally, I would just only unlock this. But if I save 3 points, I can unlock these free as well. I also could save up a point to unlock this at 10. So that's what I'm going to do. But what's my game plan now? Well, there is the Greenskin faction here in southern Nebraska. I could go deal with them. They would provide some territory.
No glory.
But if we look at the situation, there are some factions that actually hate me more than the Greenskins. That is interesting. So Safri hates me more than either Slaanesh, slightly more than Slaanesh, and more than the Greenskins. That is a bit of a screwed up situation. But Safri is kind of screwed up. If you notice the purple on the ground, they have a corruption thing going on right now. Now I'm going to take these 2 units and merge them into a single unit and just recruit another one that's going to be healthy. And that will be it this particular turn. No diplomatic options available. Safri can be attacked and conquered. If you won't do it, someone will. It does feel against the lore, doesn't it? Or the spirit of it. High elves fighting high elves. I mean, it does happen occasionally. Hell, it happened in the end times, but that was a bit of a special circumstance. But it is your best plan. The White Tower of Hoef is a good settlement to have, and they're not. The Safri is not going to become friendly to you very quickly. You would have to spend a lot of other resources
dark elves
to get it done. Now here I get the quest battle for the armor. Is this important? Not really. Is it hard? Not really. I'll do this, but I won't do it right now because I would take some casualties. Now over here I do get the ability of getting the Elven Craftsman, and the income is going to start stabilizing because because of the invocation that I've put in the structures that I've been getting. Just getting more and more and more control.
Tyrion, heir of an area.
Actually, before I declare war, let's look at Port Elistor. So it's level 2. The White Tower is level 3. They're at war with no one else, so I feel fairly confident in taking them out on my own.
I am ready to fight.
In this case, I'm actually just gonna loot and occupy myself.
Claim anything of value.
Get that. Get.
Shield against the darkness.
Gonna repair the main structure, but not gonna repair the fort. gonna merge these two spearmen, get an
Champion
extra
of
one.
the Ever Queen. Defender of Ulfwine.
My mage has leveled up. So I'm just gonna get Winds of Magic Power Recharge, so reserves. Research has finished up as well, so let's get Militia Training. Start working on Militia Training, just getting
Servant
that
of the
extra
king.
recruitment. I could also get another army, and I think I actually will get another army. I may not have a good lord for it, but screw it. I'm just gonna accept that. Tell you what, this isn't actually a bad effect because I don't care about that.
I
Those
serve
kind
the
of
Phoenix
units right
King.
now. So for her, we're just gonna get more archers. Just normal archers. It may take a couple of turns, but I do have the time.
Protector of the Ever
Don't want to do too much global
Protector
recruitment right
of-
now because it would be costly. Although maybe one unit, nah, I need the money. My upkeep is gonna go up soon enough. Now the White Tower is going to be a settlement. A major settlement is going to be heavily
I
fortified.
bid you welcome.
So it's going to be
Can I
something
offer
of a pain
assistance?
to
Your
take over.
word shall reach
I
the
get the
Phoenix.
Very
non-aggression.
well.
Don't go
Asshole
more
princess.
beyond
My
non-aggression,
life
trade agreements, and
for
military access with a
Lord
lot
of
of
the
factions
Phoenix.
unless you
God,
feel that they're an
Give
ally.
the
Sometimes you will be able to get an alliance and it's like, oh, the money is worth it. But if it's an ally, if it's a faction that's going to start or get involved in wars that you don't want to get involved in, don't really do it. Don't worry about it. It's not worth fighting
At your service.
someone else's wars for no good reason. Okay, so the White Tower of Hoeth lies there. They likely are going to have a stack, and I know where it is. Like, I'm just showing you here
Unlikely.
because I just wanted to showcase that it does exist. It's right here, there in Torfino. Why is it there? Well, the simplest answer is that Alariel has a special kind of relationship with Safri, as in she'll generally conquer portions of it.
I will hear your words, but I make no promises.
Okay,
of
what
aid.
do you want, Alariel? Now, this is the kind of thing that you should accept. Though you may want to rebalance it. Like, she offered me 100, I was like, eh, give me more. Going to war with this particular faction costs you nothing. Because she's gonna destroy that faction. They're on their other side of the map. But this doesn't necessarily apply to all wars. Pick your wars, pick your battles. Have a plan. My plan right now is taking out Safri. Once Safri is gone, I will worry about other things. Though to take down Safri, I'm probably going to need a larger army than I currently possess. Or armies. Alright, so Tyrion gets extra control.
Never.
There are 17 units there
Absurd.
along with an 11 unit garrison.
You may approach.
Could I win that fight?
I serve the Phoenix
Maybe.
King. Garrisoning.
I feel it would be a hard one indeed. I'm just going to take 4 units from that,
go.
and I'm just
Tyrion,
going to take
heir
advantage of
Valerian.
something. I am going to recruit
Your orders?
locally. I'm gonna get some spearmen here. They're not a bad choice.
Can I offer assistance?
And I am going to... Oh, maybe 1 spearman, 1 archer. I don't like using the regular archers, but
Asshole
it cannot be
princess.
denied. They're a bit cheaper to maintain, but nah, whatever. I'll just get the upgraded ones. Also upgrade the Elven Craftsman building. Growth is coming along just nicely over there.
Shield against the darkness.
If this army comes to attack the port, I'll beat the crap out of them. Plain and simple.
Princess of the Azure.
Now, one thing I want to look at are the items. Okay, so he's got the sword and an armor. Alright, pretty decent. There is still a
I am the
corruption
heir of
issue.
Venerian.
Alright, give me a bit of money. So I got the agreement with Evres. Trade agreement. Now, how do you approach this situation? Let's go with the tribute. That is an excellent question.
Impossible for the Phoenix King. We march.
Servant of the king.
Your behest.
The chances of winning this outright are low. They're just too strong.
Sunfang hungers.
So siege it is.
Unlikely.
Siege causes attrition.
Lady of the Phoenix Court. We shall not rest. Absurd. Treading lightly.
So let's lay siege.
Your instructions.
I'm going to transfer more of these archers to Tyrion.
For my queen.
Never. No.
Now I guess we're gonna find out if the AI feels comfortable enough to sally forth. In this case, if they do sally forth, it's probably a better situation for me.
Bring me
I have more
battle
range power than they do.
to
And I have
victory.
Tyrion. And I have Mage and they don't, even though they are supposed to represent.
Those who speak the truth are all.
Just gonna order her to attack a target. Or use an allegiance points to tell her to attack a
Must
target.
restore order.
Alright.
I
Now this is a harsh
lust
fight, but if
for
I win it
battle.
and take this entire province of Safari, I will certainly be at a significant advantage for what else I want to accomplish in the campaign, like either taking Southern Embrace or Calador. Yeah, Calador, another faction that you can wipe out, like Noctilus here is sending a stack of troops.
Magic
He
in
may wipe out
purest form.
Calador with that. We'll see. To be quite honest, if I could avoid the fight with Noctilus, that would be in my interest. Not because he's hard to deal with, it's just like taking out his settlement would be something of a challenge. It's heavily fortified in the ocean and
I
the
am
territory
Tyrion,
around it
champ.
causes attrition. Nakari is about to wipe out Greece. Nakari is the real threat for you. Though, to be honest, any of the legendary lords on the islands can beat the tar out of Nakari. Or like Lariel or Elfarian. They might declare war against me
By
here.
Assurian.
If I ought to resolve this, then
I am ready.
I'll
to
win,
fight.
but I'll
Ready to
pay a
serve.
price.
Preparing camp.
If I fight the battle
Alright.
manually, well, I don't want to fight the battle manually. I'll tell you why. This is a walled settlement. If I fight it manually, the casualties,
Bring me battle.
there's no mixing it. The casualties will be fairly extreme. No way, no matter how you cut it.
Ulf one.
And the problem I have at the moment is the problem with the walled settlements is this. I have a ram right now. I can use it to break down a gate. A gate. But realistically, I'd probably want at least 2 rams to be able to effectively attack it. Now, don't get me wrong. If I do attack it, I'll likely win here. I do have range power, etc., etc. But
Sunfang
yeah, walled
hungers.
settlement battles are not fun.
Absolutely.
Not unless you have artillery to break down the walls or destroy the enemy towers. I, sadly enough, do not have artillery. I'm going to get some archers here. Lots of control, special resource, and all that.
I lust for battle.
And I do have the luxury of time and space over here. Though, would I really lose anything if I'm actually out to resolve it? Yeah, the Lauder and Seaguard, pretty good units.
I will weigh what you have to say and the merit of your actions.
So, he's offering me to join the war against Terranok. I'm gonna refuse for a moment. That's why I didn't make a deal with Terranok. Because I may want to join that war.
by Assurian.
Okay.
There is glory to be won.
Costly, but it would have been costly regardless. Now, if I sack the settlement, this is level 3, so it's going to be reduced to 2, then to 1 if I sack it and occupy. If I just occupy, it's going to be reduced to 2, and I think that's actually a better situation. I do have some decent amount of coin. I'm just going to lose and
the
occupy.
spoils. Protector of the Evergreen.
Yep, and gives me good structures over there. And I got some regiments of renown. Regiments of renown, DLC stuff.
Champion of the Evergreen.
But they are special. They're special kinds of units, more or less,
Orders. It shall be done.
of various types. There are quite a few available.
Victory for the Assur!
I am just going to take some archers off his hands. She's gonna march south. She's actually gonna get more recruits.
Assur lady.
Get 2 more spearmen and get the hell out of here to go deal with Noctilus. So he's reached rank 11. So there would be 3 skills. He's got 5. So I'm going to dedicate him. You can dedicate him to a particular god. What is the best choice? Well, Tyrion is generally not going to spend a lot of time within a particular region. You can either go for the casualty replenishment, or you can go for the post-battle loot, or income from sacking settlements 15. Ooh, that is a lot. Holy crap. Not gonna lie, I am tempted. Regardless of what you choose, there are plenty of good choices over here, and regardless of what you choose, there's still a buff, but yeah, I'm going with that. Campaign movement range can't be beat. Just being able to get across the battlefield is an enormously beneficial effect. Now, I am currently at 17, and I can get the prince. No, not, I don't want the lord, sorry. I want the noble. I already have a lord. Though I can get the prince, that would give me a significant upkeep benefit over there.
Behold, elven beauty.
Let's see if would there be anything better over there. Oh, actually there wouldn't necessarily. Except her, she is incredible. Now it can be something of an annoyance trying to sort through all the goddamn magic schools the elves have, I can tell you, to recruit a mage lord, an archmage lord. I wish there was some better organization over here, because there's a lot of schools of magic. A metal is generally really good, death is good, fire is good, life somewhat. So you might want to limit yourself to certain lords. Though none of these are really, really good right now. But at this point, I think I'm just going to get him.
I serve the Phoenix King.
Get that, and then replace her. Oh, if you think that was a nightmare, wait until you see this. Okay, let's get organized so we can get that minus 10% upkeep. There is a even better one. But for a moment, although I do have a good amount of income, so can I get a prince that, can I get a noble that would give me something that would be worth it? If I spent 14, yeah, I'll tell you what, I'm not gonna do anything right now. Just get more influence would be worth it right now. More jugs of wine. Bring in the public order. It's +5 already.
Protector of Ulfwyn.
So Noctilus is going to march there. I'm tempted to just leave some units recruit as I go with Tyrion.
A wise
Just
course.
leave some units with her so she can lay siege and take this settlement. Just gonna repair the major settlement building and that right now.
The elves of Ulfwyn have long memories.
As you can see, Nakari has chosen death. Now that's where I don't understand the decision making of the AI. I admit it is a limitation. But the AI will declare war against you even though they have no snowball chance in hell of winning. They'll declare war against you because reasons. Don't ask me why. I don't know. It's like, that is genuinely a suicidal course of action. I think I'm gonna leave even more units here with her, and then replace her with him when I get more influence.
Can I offer assistance?
Though I could just...
Duty calls.
No, I'm gonna leave those over there.
Minate!
I hope I've judged this correctly, but
I
it
cannot
should be. There's
rewrite
only 6
reality.
units. Yep.
The Kadai watch over us.
I have a decent amount of money, but let's
Leave
check.
nothing of worth. Highborn.
We will drive you out.
Alright, this would give me ingots, but I don't need it right now. So disband the repair the main settlement and get the commandment to reduce building cost.
Ever vigilant.
Meanwhile, Tyrion has enough movement points to go to his original province. He's still not level 12. It will be interesting to see who wins this fight.
Until next time.
I admit. I could recruit another lord over here to get the units I need in. Actually, this is a better strategy. I'll explain why.
We shall not
Here
rest.
I am, by force marching I can get closer, and since I can get closer, I'm going to recruit a regular lord. It's not going to be, he's not going to be a really good one.
Of the Everqueen.
But the goal here is to just get the recruitment going, even global recruitment.
Ready for orders.
Screw global recruitment.
Your decree.
No, just get a regular recruitment, get those 2 units. These 2 armies are going to fight each other. They're going to kill each other. They're at war with each other, right? You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wipe out Calador. Even if Calador wins, I don't give a crap. If Noctilus wins, it isn't a great situation to start a war with the faction that you don't... Of course. That generally is one of the worst outcomes that could have come out of that. No joke. Could I beat that army?
The elves of Ulthuan have long memories.
Nope. No, Noctilus has another stack of troops. What the fuck? Okay. Now let's be a bit sneaky, I guess.
Faithful servant.
By positioning my army here.
Beg for your life. Red.
Well.
The ward.
Your kind are not worthy of a meeting with the Phoenix King.
Your will is done. Prince Elthar.
I'm going to ask for money.
Tyrion. As you command.
And here's the brilliant aspect here. He is sandwiched between my armies and the armies of Calador. But I'm not just gonna fight this battle on my own. No, good sir. They may lose here. Alright, so there's this reinforcement army. Noctilus is too much of a threat to just simply ignore. No. Even if I do end up in a war. Okay, I got a lot of reinforcements coming here. A lot of reinforcements coming here.
For duty.
But I'll tell you what my game plan is here. My game plan isn't to do any of the goddamn fighting myself. Now my plan is to let good old glorious Calidor do all the fighting for me. That will weaken their army. What I wonder is if the fire... Yep, I'm being a cheesy bastard here. I admit. Guilty as charged. Oh man, yes. Here we go. If you're wondering why I'm doing that, don't wonder. You know the answer. Why would I bomb my own allies? Because they're not going to be my allies soon enough. Friendly fire is a thing. Yes, it's being cheesy as fuck. But it works. This is the thing about Total War. You need to react to the situations as they are given to you. Yeah, we're gonna go all on ahead with magic.
For the Ever Queen.
Gonna wipe out my own allied army.
Is yours.
And that's exactly what I want. Not completely. Obviously, I do want to fight them and beat them myself.
Following Ephua.
But this will leave Calidor right for the taking.
Scython, hear me. The greater good.
Spearman!
The greater good. Yes, the greater good of Tyrion. That is what I'm working for here.
Menlui, Orior, Menlui. Onward.
Understood. Asur, advance. Orders received. We advance.
Althwin Mage. Lakoi Sario.
The enemy is casting spells.
I gotta wonder why they're not shooting so well.
Battle ready.
Oh, they might lose. Ooh.
It shall be done. Archers. As you
Stop
say.
the shooting, boys. We're not gonna help the Calidor scum win. I mean, they will win, don't get me wrong, but...
Acknowledged. It will be done. Orders received. Without fail.
Just gotta be a bit careful.
Going.
Oh man, that is delicious. I love it. Though they did avoid it at the last moment, sadly.
Seeking the foe. Maintaining order. Moving out. Doing my duty.
This is a victory.
Release them.
Let's ransom them.
Champion of the... You are well aware of the fate that awaits those who break with tradition.
Well,
Shield against the darkness.
tradition or not, they're about to get wiped out. Okay, so 1 level there. I am going to get the Ward of Loic.
Defender of the Phoenix Throne.
Get the Regiments of Renown for more combat power.
Prince of Elfwan.
To victory!
Well, that is going to be a close victory, but no units would be lost, so
There
let's
is
go
glory
fight.
to be won. Enslave them.
And that is Kalidor's army.
I will see to it.
Defender of Ulfwa.
I go. Defender
Gonna
of the
disband
Phoenix
this army
Throne.
because it's both supply lines
Awaiting
and
Garrisoning.
regular upkeep.
Princess of the Asu, we shall not rest. Taking up residence.
Alright, gonna get that public order going.
Order must be maintained.
Gonna replace her. If I can. Should I? Yeah, I will. It's time to start talking about upkeep. To maintain more armies, you just need to organize your economy better. He's gonna give me 15 upkeep benefit. That is going to be quite a lot. Wow, interesting.
Your will is done.
So even though I literally force marched this army, I sure as fuck didn't know about that. So if you replace a lord, even though your army already force marched, you still get that benefit. That is interesting. That is really interesting. Gonna get no, actually sword player would be nice, but let's get speed. Tyrion does thrive on his speed. For that one, we're gonna get Loic, because we are fighting a lot of range units right now. As well as more in that Thunderbolt evasion, which just increases combat ability. Well, let's just repair that this way.
Destruction abounds.
There is going to be a rebellion here. Can I head it off? Maybe. Maybe. Let's get some casualty replenishment. Could use it.
Your word, faithful servant.
It's a combination of factors that are causing this situation.
Prince.
Maybe it would have been better to have the rebellion.
Sons of Ulfwan, what brings
What
you
do you
here?
want, Elfarian? I'll take it. No, I think Tyrion can take Kalidor on his own. So maybe I just leave this army a bit here to stabilize the province a bit more. And actually, let's trigger the rebellion. Seems legit. And then
I will
to
grant
get
you the
southern
respect
impress.
due to an envoy. Nothing.
More genocidal fools declaring war against me. This will happen a lot, and especially as you get more and more powerful. Certain factions just are strongly predisposed against you.
The Assa of troubles.
Great powers the world over are mobilizing for war, Prince Tyrion. The waning strength of the Vortex induces those of evil.
Guardian of the Phoenix Crown. Your bidding. Making my way.
Tyrion, heir of an Aryan. Very well.
Yeah. Should be able to do it. Gonna go in
Grant
the
me your
League's
blessing.
Blessing. Alright, it's gonna be in Safari.
Guardian. Onward.
I'm just gonna position myself a bit closer there, but I'm gonna go via the sea.
Sailing away. Lightning swift.
Yeah, go via the sea there. Yeah, their rebellion should have just triggered that last turn. Would have been a better decision.
Champion of the Ever Queen.
Alright, Safari tries and cling to life. This is because I sacked the settlements, didn't leave my army for a couple of turns to stabilize it. If I had left Tyrion in that province for a couple of turns, things would have been much better. But I saw an opportunity and I seized it. Now the battles that Tyrion has, the first one is fairly
What do you wish
easy.
to discuss?
The second one, the second one, not so much. But the first one, although it's easy, it doesn't necessarily give you a huge amount in return. The one problem I feel Tyrion does have, the one thing you're gonna feel, is not having artillery. Do nothing. It's not worth it. You do get some growth, so if you really need it, yeah, sure, but generally, don't go for it.
The Asa need.
Get
Free
that
them.
extra influence. And the rebellion is going to help stabilize the situation.
Protector
Get the port
of
up.
Elfwan. Entering the garrison.
And let's
Ready
just
to
move a lot.
march.
Alariel's champion. For my
Here
queen.
I'm going to lay siege to Calador. Gonna get the ram, and I'll use this,
I
this
lust
as an
for
opportunity to
battle.
showcase the siege battle. I didn't want to do it
Ridiculous.
with Safari because that would have been a excruciating experience, to say the least. Here I probably should have got Inspiring Movement earlier, because
Prince of
like this I
Elfwan.
just wasted all that extra movement. Alright, Lothran is looking like it's getting more and more stable. Now one structure I would like to have, but I do need level 3, is to get the Eagle Claw bolt throwers. Here I'm actually just going to level Lothran,
The people
and maybe
resting.
construct it there.
The what? Protector of Elfwan.
Akari seems like he's gonna get wiped
Master
out.
of magic. I bid you welcome to the court of the Phoenix King.
Yeah, they don't want to join that war. You can
You
blame
may
them.
Speak. Duty.
Queen of Avalon.
Alariel seems to be doing quite well for herself, though. So,
Faithful servant of Ultimate.
though I don't understand the AI's reluctance to take major settlements, because like she has an entire stack of troops
The
there.
Ever
She's just
Queen.
gone for that
High
one settlement,
Priestess.
which is, yeah, it's okay, but getting the capital is really what counts. The Shrine Cane is a pain, but
Sunfang hungers.
not really
Where to?
too big of one.
Alariel the Ever Queen.
So you can see Count Noctilus over there. He's just traipsing around, having the time of his life. He's heading towards me, as best as I can tell. Wow. Everyone's marching against me. I feel honored. It can be annoying to see these small, pathetic armies. Thankfully, you are in a safe position, because see, the safety here of Tyrion isn't just like his isolation, the relative isolation that he starts on the campaign map.
I
It
will
goes
do
a
my
bit
duty.
further than that.
Defender of the Phoenix throne. Going forth.
Do I risk that? I could risk that.
I second this.
I'll crush them all!
For the Ever Queen! Attack! My prowess is needed. Turn them
Get more
loose.
influence too.
Protector of Ulthuan.
I
Occupy
just
their
occupied.
lands.
Even if it's level 1, it just doesn't give me that much to be worth it.
Primed for action.
More regular archers for him. And again, Bold Master.
Behold, elven beauty.
And this is gonna start stabilizing in a significant fashion soon enough.
Seal.
Okay, we got a siege battle, gentlemen. It would be a Pyrrhic victory, but a victory nonetheless, but we are gonna fight them manually. The problem of a siege battle is that you have the wall. The wall is very difficult to destroy even with while having access to siege equipment. It used to be in Warhammer 2 that the way you would fight the siege battle is you would rely on your range prowess, break down the wall, force the units off the walls, snipe them off the walls, force entry into the settlement. This is no longer quite as viable. There are a couple of reasons behind it. Units on the wall get the significant, it feels like they get the significant benefit in terms of their damage reduction against ranged units. So it doesn't quite work as well. If you assault the settlement right now, you are gonna have to fight it. Now they have some spearmen here. That is actually a really intelligent move on their part. And that creates more issues as well, as you might imagine. Tyrion, the sorcerer, the spearman. The spearman, I don't have that many melee units. That also creates some problems. Now my ranged units will be able to force the enemy off the wall.
It will be done.
Just so many of them that, yeah, it's still gonna happen. Ranged elven units are incredibly durable. Not incredibly durable, they're incredibly powerful in terms of ranged combat. But, and there is always a but, isn't it? While forcing the enemy off the walls is still something you can do, is insufficient. You need to try and take the streets. And therein lies, if you will, the problem. What the AI will generally do when you try and take the gate, because that's going to be your usual barrier of entry, right? What the AI will do is swarm at that gate and try and stop it. Now there are some cheeses available, like sending your lord.
Ulthuan Mage.
Advance! Loven Seaguard. Archers.
Alright, they're gonna get wiped out unless I pull them out. You can also, one of the things I could also do here, since I have a flying unit, though this is not necessarily going to work in every situation, I could just fly around and just soak archer shots. The ram is moving into position.
For duty!
Following Ethua.
Orders received. Understood.
March!
Lakoi Soraya! Yes?
Gonna get the Thunderbolt going there. The ram is gonna start breaking down the gate there.
Archers!
For the king!
For duty!
Alright,
Servants
the gate
of
is
light!
broken. Time to move in. Now the problem you generally encounter, unless you're fighting for multiple gates, but even then you're just creating more choke points. The problem is just the enemy piles in and prevents your... Like, let's say you have melee superiority, prevents you from using that. If you're reliant on ranged superiority... Alright, so the Phoenix took some damage, but now it's gonna regen.
At once!
Because that's what they do. But there's a chance, it is not a guarantee, that's why I haven't relied on it. Okay.
Lakoi! Apace!
Forward.
One of the things you can rely is if you have magic, if you have artillery, if you have ranged units just beyond the gate, you can rely on them to do a lot of damage, provided you get the enemy units to clump up, like they've done here. Though this is pretty much over at this point.
Heir of Anarian! Without fail! Usher, advance! Spearmen!
I'm going to take quite a few of my units. Make no mistake, I have taken quite a bit of damage here.
Heir of
Damn!
Anarian!
You know what?
For our
The towers are touch and go as far as I'm concerned. Ooh, Illyrian Reapers. Let's kick in the Silver Helms and get that thing out. Get that bird. Get.
We will obey! Death to all!
Silver Helms are better, but Illyrian Reapers are a pretty spooky unit in their own right.
Acknowledged!
My power
Gonna
is
get Tyrion
yours.
to join in.
Giants of Mathlan! Setting forth! Spearmen, as you say!
By Alario!
Cavalry has certainly been buffed, or it feels like it plays a lot better than it used to.
Defender of Ulf-1!
If I kill him, the battle is essentially over. Don't even need to kill him. Just boost Tyrion's melee attack so my hits will land more often. And then use the Hex there. There we go. Personal advice, when it comes to sieges, avoid them if you can. I'm going to loot and occupy it. Need a replenishment.
Tyrion,
Yes, there is going to be a price.
Following your orders.
Prince of Elfwan.
Now I won't be able to do it this turn. Now with that all over me.
I shall hear you out before the... No.
At your service.
Prince of Elfwan.
I won't be able to show this turn, but one last thing I do want to show
Servant of
for
the king.
this video in particular. I'm gonna get sword player for him. Magical resistance on heroes most of the time is not the too big priority when you're in the campaign. Chain lightning is pretty nice. That is a bit of an expensive spell, not gonna lie. Let's repair that.
Ever loyal.
That would produce ingots, which would help my trade, but I don't really need more trade partners right now. I need public order, I need income.
Yes, sir, on trouble.
9 turns until the invocation is ready. Okay, so he's sacked that settlement and then pissed off, more or less. That does create its own issue because I don't know where he's gone.
Now that you
to.
are here, I will hear you.
Oh, he's gone to... You know what's awesome? Having an entire stack of enemy troops there, and then having one that you may feel is an ambush stance. That's a point worth talking about. If the enemy disappears and you don't feel like his movement makes sense, then he's either gone here in this region,
What is
or
this
he's put
foolishness?
himself in a nice ambush stance. Let me just toggle the fog of war just to be safe. No, he was here. He didn't disappear. He was still here. Why was he invincible? Oh, why was he invincible?
Your kind are not worthy.
Sing the strong.
I'm just gonna
bell.
enable a
Of course,
non-aggression
of
back.
course.
The fog of war, by the way, doesn't reveal factions. Like, it doesn't affect your diplomatic options or anything like that.
Defender of the Phoenix throne.
No glory. Only service.
Well, maybe I should give
I
him
will
this
leave
entire
the
region.
answer. Leave nothing of value.
Yeah, it might be a
Defender
smarter
of the
idea,
Ever
really.
Queen.
State your case quickly, for countless Asur lives depend upon me. My solemn duty.
Alright, he agreed to a defensive alliance.
To war! Seize it, guardian of the Phoenix crown.
Let your words be true, and your time here brief.
And this is the
Tor
power.
Evres expects.
Now, by giving him this, these elements, he'll develop them
Command
pretty
me.
well himself.
Marching out.
Crucially,
rest
they'll
here.
prevent being a target that I have to worry about. So Noctilus could threaten that entire coastline. And more importantly, it frees up this army from having to police these elements to go to the west.
Awaiting orders.
Now it is a weird thing, right? It's like if I toggle Fog of War, I know he's here, but why can't I see that? Is it just like that patch? It's just
At
a
your
bit
service.
bizarre.
Shield against the darkness.
If I fight that battle with that,
Hussar.
yes.
No.
There's a landmark on level 5, by the way, an incredibly good landmark.
Defender of Ulthuan. Bring me battle. Ever vigilant. Champion of the Ever Queen.
Alright, the archers have taken some damage, but even if he lays siege,
Speak.
which I'm not entirely certain he will,
Tyrion.
Even if he lays siege, I'll still be able to beat the living crap out of him. I'm gonna get some melee defense against him.
You must restore order.
Galador is mine. Get Bowmaster. Research-wise, we get some more stuff available. I'm gonna get speed and then cartridge ammunition. Other stuff just isn't important at this point. Like, eventually you may want to get naval discipline. Sure. The research tech tree for the elves can feel certainly a bit dry. And many
Tyrion.
That would be pretty solid. Leadership, yeah. Melee defense for him.
You
let's
have
just
my
get
attention.
A hero, a noble. For Tyrion to use.
You call. Can. I'm waiting. Your wit and wisdom will be a welcome distraction. Sit, please.
Now, by making defensive alliances, you do make them more likely. Yeah, I'm not paying that much. As much as I hate Nakari and want them wiped out as quickly as possible.
I agree.
It is.
Do you,
Lady.
valiant
Is in my
Defender
interest
of the
to
Guardian
not
of the
spend
Phoenix
that kind of
Crown.
money. That would be an enormous portion of my income. My earned gains.
Your will is done.
This army is going to march west.
protector
This army
of
is
the
going to stand
Evergreen?
its ground and
Servant of the
Yolosapien. Now, if I beat him here, you might accept the peace treaty. Keep in mind there is still a stack of Bleakhold troops that's about to land on Calador. That's the thing that I'm a bit concerned about, if I'm being honest here. Yeah, things are getting a bit out of hand. And Illyrian keeps asking me to join their war against Terranok, and I'm like, no thanks. I could. I mean, their settlements are ripe for the taking, their armies are diminished, and yeah, that's quite a good target, but I've got other problems right now. Alright, that's a good situation for me.
Protector of Ulthuan. I await your command. Standing by. Not possible, I'm afraid.
There is a cargo ship there.
Prince.
Wrecked. It's only 3 minutes. They're not gonna do shit.
Champion of the Everqueen.
They, however, may.
Kill them.
Alright, we do get the garrison as well. I would lose the regiment of renown, but
I
it's fine.
lust for battle.
It is a bit weird.
They are free to go.
A senseless request.
Shield against the darkness. For my queen. Protector of the Everqueen.
But regiments of renown do regenerate. And just get
Enslave them.
Lots of money. You want money? Fight battles. You'll get all the money in the world that you ever need.
Son of Ulfla, Tyrion.
Yeah, the slot that they
Venera.
occupied is... Well, I could get the Modern Sea Guard Regiment of Renown, but I don't necessarily want that right now.
Guardian.
I might put it on him. It depends. I feel like garrisons should be able to deal with this if they do decide to attack. But I am not simply concerned about that. I'm gonna get Blade Master. Okay. As for her, more winds of magical reserves. Just increasing those reserves there. Now I've beaten the Dread Fleet so badly at this point that they may be willing to accept a peace offering if I were to give them to them. It is a bit hilarious that the Bleak Hold is trying to march on my settlements. Can I meet them? I see. It is a good question. Don't necessarily believe the movement points, but you don't want to let this army run amok, because what the AI will do.
Defender of the Everqueen, defender of the Phoenix throne.
What matters
I
do you
love
wish
that I
to...
have a objective to capture and occupy the Phoenix Gate. I really do. Now the battles here would be great for influence purposes.
As you command.
Problem is...
Faithful servant. Your orders are reasonable. Setting up garrison. Your aid.
I shall go.
What do you require? I will share my experience.
Problem is actually getting in range. I'm gonna disable income. Help
Champion
stabilize the
of
public order.
Everqueen.
Okay. So I'm going to fight the battle for Sunfang. It is the harder of the two battles currently available, but Sunfang is an incredible weapon. And it gives you an incredible benefit with that free control. So let's go for it. The dragon armor? Yeah, it's not really that important, though obviously the set bonus. Well, the wards, it is a good piece of armor, don't get me wrong on this, but there are other pieces of armor that are pretty good as well. Though this one has 15 armor and 10% ward save. That is really solid. Like Tyrion's entire set is really solid all around. So here we are fighting Safri. I guess that's why Tyrion doesn't get along with Safri in the campaign, because of this particular battle. You know, I really wish you could auto-resolve these. Like, they're not interesting, they're easy, they were designed much earlier, they're just not that good anymore. Now the army there is not going to be too much of an issue.
This is a sad day for Ulthuan.
Indeed. Okay.
For duty, advance! Utter, forward!
So what you need to know about this particular battle is that there are enemy units going to spawn there. I'm just going to march Tyrion across their front line.
Heir of Anarion, for the king! Moving out!
Hi, Mage! Lakoi Sario!
As you say!
Understood! Tyrion! Glory awaits!
The lore masters of Hoeth are not to be dismissed.
Duty calls!
You're really fighting a battle against them.
Eager for battle!
That still works. Blob them up with your hero, take them out. Alright, I'll add sort that. Let's march against the enemy army. Full on advance. That was the hard part. Yes, they do have some artillery. Boo.
We will obey.
But they only have some basic units. Some damage is going to be taken over there. Okay.
Silver helms. Understood. A Sirian guides us. Striking forth.
Orders received. Serve the king.
Outward Mage! Crush them! Scython, hear me!
By Ilario! We go!
Spellcaster!
For North One!
Right, can cycle charge. Cycle charging is when you get the charge bonus because you've been able to get enough distance. Like basically it's supposed to represent the lance shock, so to speak. It does a lot more damage than regular attack.
Heir of Anarian.
So with cavalry, you don't really want to just continuously fight. You want to go in, do a lot of damage with charge, get the charge going in, get out. Alright, victory. I just positioned my units there to deal with them. Gonna actually execute these guys. Get that extra experience. Alright.
Shield against the darkness.
Well, it is a bit unfortunate, I gotta admit. It is a bit unfortunate.
The Reaper.
Since what, am I not gonna be able to get the Heart of Avalon because Alario, who's generally gonna do it, just took the Phoenix Gate, or will I get any other opportunity? It is a pretty big issue if I can't get that. Alright, Tyrion does have a lot of skill choices. You shouldn't necessarily waste your points there, but yeah, I'm just gonna get some extra control. I will already have external control, but because without the heart, you can't get the set bonus either. Which, yep, it is a bit of a problem. And it's a pretty decent item as well. No, it's not just a decent item, it's an incredible item, if I'm not mistaken about it. Yeah, because it gives you HP regeneration. Replenish troops, that's what the noble is really good for. Settlement upgrade available. I am going to start getting artillery pieces. The one weakness of your initial army. Gonna fix it. Outside of that, should I get more mages? Well, the problem is I already start with one, and that is a good question. See, if it was rank 4, sure. Let's see about cultural advancements though. Yeah.
Defender
Because I
of
already started with the
Phoenix
mage,
throne.
right? So. Now, military advancements rank 2 can be decent. But I don't necessarily think it's worth investing in it at the moment. Well, no. Because if you look at the sub bonuses over here, well, except this, like that would be good. Nah, what am I talking about? But yeah, I think I'm gonna go for... No, I'm gonna get the Shrine of Sirian later on. Get the mages right now. Just get that later when I can.
Defender.
Count Noctilus.
So that is a bit of an issue with the heart. Because there's simply no way you're
We
gonna
have
rush
much to
across the Phoenix Gate to get that. And no way Lariel on any
glorious
difficulty
victory.
fails to capture that before you. Unless you genuinely Zerg rush it. I'm curious to see what the Bleak Holds will do. The AI has a habit of trying to avoid battles. There we go. There he landed there, but the garrisons should be, in my opinion, sufficient. Even if I have to fight. Alright, Crix has been destroyed as expected.
Kill them!
Guardian of the Phoenix Crown.
A gentle ocean breeze.
You should be able to get them. Horse march.
Champion of the Ever Queen. To adventure.
Protector of Ulthuan.
To wipe them out there.
The Asher followed strength. Restrain them.
And the Great Dark Elven
bidding.
invasion has been put to
Full
rest.
sails now.
Tyrion, heir of Anarion.
Tyrion's gonna go to Calador. And get 30 more influence.
The goddess forbids it.
Just more control.
Waste my time.
If you ever want to feel safe, like in this kind of situation, just get another hero.
Servant
I
of the
think,
king.
barring any surprises, I think it's gonna be enough. Why the extra control on Tyrion when you have a lot of control? Well, because when I'm gonna sack and seize enemy settlements, controllers are only gonna be an issue there. Okay, over here I am going to get sword player. Hard to hit, same thing as Tyrion, just reducing the chance to get hit, get more replenished troops. Now the sea here is under my control, so I'm getting replenishment.
The
over
Assur
here.
have triumphed.
That's an important factor. The sea can replenish your troops, but not necessarily. You do have an action to gain influence from a region like that.
A noble
So
victory.
influence really is easy to manage for the most part. My only hope now might be the Kari takes the
The
Phoenix
elves
Gate.
of Ulthuan have lost.
Well, she's just declared war on half the world. Morathi. She is a nightmare, and for every faction there's always some kind of nemesis, if they have any. For the High Elves in general, Morathi is that issue. Because in a lot of campaigns, well, Morathi, at least in Warhammer 2, she would end up conquering half of Wolf on her own. And she is no joke. Okay. a lot more powerful than
By
you
the
are.
comet.
Though I might be able to defeat this,
Your word.
but yeah, I'm not gonna take that chance.
Your orders are reasonable. Guardian. Defender of the Ever Queen.
Not gonna recruit units, wanna save some slots for artillery.
Tyrion.
Yeah, not gonna lie. It is a
Embarking.
kick. But it is a kick you're gonna have to deal with. Deal with what, you might ask? Deal with the fact that the AI is an obnoxious piece of crap that's going to constantly go after you. Gonna get more iron. So maybe, no. Trade resource can be useful, but not in this kind
Ready
of
for
situation.
orders.
Primed for action. Ready to march. Speak.
Yeah, there's no
Defender
threat
of the
here, so
Phoenix
he's gonna
throne.
move here. I am
Protector
going to
of
use
the
him
Everqueen.
to recruit a bunch
This will fail. No.
a bunch of eagle claws. So I'm gonna disband these two. Having 2 or 3 per army is quite fine.
Shield against the darkness.
Indeed, this is your early game doom stack. A bunch of archers, some spearmen if you just want the melee ability, though you don't necessarily need it all that much either. And some eagle claw, bolt throwers, siege capability. Your only artillery, really. The elves have a little bit of everything, but they don't necessarily excel. Well, they have good magic, they have dragons. Dragons are powerful. They don't have great artillery, though. They do absolutely own it.
The people are resting.
Well.
Don't be a fool.
Prince. I second this.
We shall not rest.
Now, Marafi might still be around here somewhere. We saw her.
You
We
must
certainly saw
restore
her.
order.
What do you do in this kind of context?
Making my way.
Well, we get the hell
Champion
out of here.
The Everqueen.
I'm going to march Tyrion about here. Does that take a lot? Okay, I'd rather be in a situation where I recruit some archers and then disband them and never use them than find myself with fewer troops. Now I'm just reacting to the AI, but this is the problem
I'm
fighting
waiting.
Noctilus. I did choose to fight him, don't get me
You
wrong.
offer anything more than just your
But that
vessel
was
of
a choice
body
based
for my
on the fact he was vulnerable. I might get the peace tree if I beat this army here. Should be able to. Yep, I
A
expected that.
strong leader is needed.
Welcome to the never-ending tide of Dark Elves. Where did he go to? Did he just leave? I guess he just left. Yep. I know Marafi was likely going to make landfall.
Greetings.
Guess I
The
was a bit
Phoenix Court will hear you.
surprised. Ain't interested in your war, bro. Leave me out of it. Alright, I can pay, that's not really worth it. Offer a larger gift, let's go with that. Because that is a lot of influence.
Ever vigilant.
Command me.
So I can get Alistair, though he's not especially great. He's a special lord in memory of someone. Memory of a fan, I believe. Affluent, Hale and Harfy. Strong. Yeah, that is a lot. Let me go here. I'm just kind of curious what we do have available. Some really good ones. Incendiary especially is an incredible one. But no, not right now.
Your end shall be swift.
Yeah, he's seeing the writing on the wall there.
See to it.
I can beat Morathi with Tyrion. I'm gonna get those too.
Inspecting the garrison.
He's probably gonna have to stay on garrison duty until I can deal with
May we both
the larger situation.
For the fallen.
Yeah, there are a number of armies here that are descending. Well, Norskans are being a problem. That is... Well, Alariel is just doing what Alariel does best.
I bid you welcome.
Now I'll leave her to it. Though she really should just get a hold on with it and auto-resolve that situation to victory. Alright, Morathi is just standing there. That works in my favor. Alfarian is over there in the Shrine of Luck. And I'm getting Eagle Claw Bolt Throwers to deal with all of my issues. So this is a situation you may encounter with a lot of campaigns. What do you do when you have multiple foes? Because if you move against one, your territories might get raided by the other ones. Well, I'd say it depends on the situation. How strong are those opponents? Can you beat them with an army, keep an army in reserve, keep two armies in reserve if need be? Those are the kind of decisions you're going to have to make. Morathi is just going to get slammed here. Though, is that a battle I want to pick? By the way, I will.
No! I'm surrounded by
Is
fools.
this a battle I want to... Well, if this army was being led by Noctilus, no, I would not.
Armor.
Let
Now, I could have avoided picking the fight with Noctilus, sure.
Defender of the Ever Queen. Send Louis!
that is forbidden.
Bloated corpses. Fine. This is easy.
I will lead the Assa. Take them captive.
Can't be done.
No, fleet master. The galleon's grip.
Dispatch me.
I'm taking,
Bring me battle.
I'm taking deep sea attrition.
Lightning swift. Sailing on.
Too far away. Too far in, so to speak. As for him, I'll give him the same benefit as Tyrion. Gotta admit, that campaign movement range is extremely useful.
The Assa are troubled.
What about this? What do I do here? Well, this
I
would have to
refuse
be a
this
manual fight.
insolence.
But yeah. But that is where I am going to stop here, because the path ahead is pretty obvious. One army, take the like if I toggle fog of war. One army may have to take this entire settlement. It does have a fairly strong garrison, but I believe it is a fight I would be able to win. Since since this doesn't have a wall, so it's somewhat easier. But yeah, it is deep sea attrition. I'm going to take a lot of damage going here, laying siege to all that. But take out Noctilus, GG. As for over here and to the north, well, to the north, Alariel is gonna finish whatever the hell she's doing, and then march and beat the crap out of Nakari. To be honest with you. Here I will be able to win the battle, though, yeah, settlement cheese. And once I do win this battle, like if I can win without resolve, you can be damn certain I'll win regularly. Once I do win this battle, that will significantly weaken Morathi. Oh, saying Morathi would be significantly weakened when she generally ends up being one of the more powerful factions in the game is, yeah, like she has one stack there, another stack, like she's got one stack here, like another army here that she's probably like she's gonna recover from this. She has a strong economy because of all the settlements she has.
Definitely not.
Like she has this entire province, and she has 2 other settlements in some other regions. In fact, I'm pretty certain.
Only etiquette
Pretty certain if she had not declared war against me, she would have ended up in a war with Hexoatl, which would have drained her.
Do you know?
But I hope you guys learned some things watching this. I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, you want to learn more, all that, feel free to leave a comment. And don't forget to subscribe, like, enable notifications, and also stay tuned for more. Join the Discord, there's a link in the description. And hey, if you appreciate the content, consider donating via PayPal, Patreon. Could certainly use the support. Stay tuned.